Hey guys, Foxdrop here with a video on 5 ways that you can tilt the enemy team without being too much of a dickhead. I think it's fair to say that every single player that's ever played League of Legends has probably been on tilt at least one time in their life. We've all been in that place where we've been a little frustrated or angry, just a little emotional, and it's made us play worse. Now in my opinion, I think the League of Legends player base probably has the highest portion of users that frequently go on tilt compared to other games. Whether that's because it's a team game, because the game can snowball heavily against you if you're not careful, whatever it is, League is probably the most frustrating and depressing games to play if you're not having a good game. What we want to look at today in this video is ways we can induce that kind of behavior or emotional state without being too much of a knobhead or being too toxic or just overall killing the sportsmanship of the game. Basically, this video will be looking at how we can get the enemy team to tilt and therefore play worse so you can win more games without feeling too dirty after the game. And of course, boys and girls, this is a video being made in partnership with our friends over at Pro Guides, who have released a nifty service to help you guys communicate with higher rated players so you can ask some things on the fly if you want to improve, if you got some questions. So moving straight on with the video, our first tactic for tilting the enemy team is, after you've got a kill, wait for them to return and kill them before they get back to their lane. The way the strategy works is, after you've ganked someone and killed them, you'll get your ally to push the minions into the tower and have him continuously attack that tower. What you want to do is you want to wait in the bush that is the entrance to the jungle in between the enemy's first tower and their second tower in lane. If you sit in that bush and you wait for them to come back, then you can actually jump on them before they get under the tower, so it's not quite a tower dive. Your ally can join in and you've killed that enemy twice in like 30 seconds. And so just solo queue where this works either if you make it into the LCS, you can do this on the professional stage too. It still works. I mean, just ask Dyrus. Now, not only does this get you 2 kills, which is really good, it will also deny the enemy from all the CS that they'll be missing under the tower, but more importantly, this is probably the most frustrating way to die. If you've already been ganked once, that kind of sucks. That's already frustrating by itself. Nobody likes to be ganked because you get that feeling where, oh, I'm better 1v1, but he just got the better jungler. You're already sowing the seeds of resentment from the enemy player to his own jungler, the fact that the enemy jungler is camping the crap out of him and his jungler isn't doing anything about it. Even if it's not his jungler's fault, of course, just don't worry about that. I'm a jungle main, just trust me, I know exactly how the blame is applied. It's also extra frustrating because you get that feeling of just like, holy crap, leave me alone, I just want to play some League of Legends. Now, you don't have to actually specifically wait in the bush that is the entrance to the jungle in between those 2 lane towers. What you can do is you can sit in like the first bush in the lane or the river bush, and you can just wait for the enemy laner to come back and then gank him again. It all depends really on the position of the minions. Basically, the whole theme, the whole concept of this strategy is you want to kill him immediately after he gets back to lane. That element right there is the thing that really induces the tilt. The second tip for tilting the enemy team is to dive them. Similar to our first point, getting dove is probably one of the more frustrating ways to die in League. I think the biggest reason why it's so sad and frustrating to die when you're under your tower is because that tower is meant to represent safety for you. If you die while you're under the protection of the tower, you just kind of think to yourself, holy crap, I'm not safe anywhere. And then it just gets into your head like at any time the jungler could be around, like you're never safe. And on top of that, the reason why you'd be under your tower in the first place is probably because the enemy has pushed a wave of minions under the tower. So when you die, you'll be missing all those minions as well, and it's an extra reason for you to be even more tilted. But guys, don't just dive the enemy team 24/7. You do need to know that you can get away with the dive because towers are quite powerful. Make sure the enemy's either really low on health, or you've got a lot of damage, or you're tanky enough to tank up the tower for a long time. And you also need to know where the enemy jungler is. Never go for a dive if you know that you're going to get counter ganked, because that is a recipe for a disaster no matter how strong you are. As a side note, I wouldn't recommend that you do this if you're playing on the Brazilian server. I've heard that the environment for diving is less than ideal right now. A little known fact, Zach was actually designed as a white blob. That was until he participated in this year's men's 3-meter springboard. Next point is to continuously pressure the same lane. Kind of an obvious one, I guess, but if you camp an enemy player, chances are they're going to get very angry, very frustrated, and tilt really hard. No one likes that feeling that they can't play the game they want to play, because if you're getting camped, well, then it really limits what you can do. It's going to make you really weak, so that's going to be extra frustrating as well. And it's especially frustrating if these are the type of players who have big egos. If they think they're stronger 1v1 and they're just getting camped and that's why they can't win their lane, then yeah, they're going to be quite frustrated. But how do you know if these players are the type of players who have big egos? Well, there is just one thing you can do to check that. If you are queuing up for a League of Legends game and you're playing against other players, okay, yeah, that's all you have to do. Yeah, that's a player who has a huge ego. Bonus points if you can camp one lane but still have other lanes winning, because in the enemy player's mind, that is the worst thing to have happen. Like if they're being camped so they can't win their lane but their allies are still losing their lanes as well, that's just... God, I'm even talking about it, I feel frustrated. You may argue that it's really hard to ensure your other lanes don't lose if you're camping one lane and not helping those out, but there are some things you can do. Specifically, you want to ward up for your lanes as well, so they don't just get ganked and die all the time to the enemy jungler. And on top of that, make sure you're taking the neutral objectives such as Rift Herald and the Dragon. And if you're strong enough, you can also invade the enemy jungler, which puts a lot of pressure on him, so that he can't then apply pressure to your lanes. Before we get on to our penultimate point, I just want to thank you guys for watching so far. Feel free to leave that cheeky thumbs up if you do enjoy the video. And I also want to ask you guys, what are your go-to strategies for tilting the enemy team? Let me know down below in the comments, but our fourth point here is to focus your attention onto champions known for their toxicity, such as Riven or Yasuo, or champions that need to snowball early, such as Pantheon. I know this point does rely on a lot of generalizations, but to be honest, there is a reason why these champions are generalized so heavily. I mean, me personally, whenever I'm playing League, I always ban Yasuo, not because I hate playing against him, which I kind of do a little bit, but more importantly, because I hate playing with him. Part of that is because of how susceptible they are to getting tilted all the bloody time. You can pretty much guarantee if you see that Yasuo lock in on your team that you're going to have at least one crybaby on that team, and he's probably going to encourage your other teammates to cry as well. But anyway, I got a little bit carried away there hating on Yasuo. Genuinely though, guys, this is a good strategy for tilting the enemy team. If you do have these champions that are quite selfish playstyles, or the champions that need to dominate a lane, or the champions that want to focus on that 1v1, if you can take them down a peg by putting a lot of focus, a lot of pressure on that lane, it can be really frustrating for those players. The reason why I say you should also put a lot of pressure on champions that need to snowball, such as Pantheon, is because these people, if they don't get ahead early, they're going to be quite useless. Maybe not specifically useless, but they're going to be a lot less useful. I find that in my personal experience, if a champion has a very one-dimensional win condition, if you can take that away from them, that's probably a champion that's going to be put on tilt. No one likes to feel like they're going to be useless in a game of League, and no one likes to accept the fact that they might have to take a step back in that game and let their allies carry them. Like, it's very, very binary with League of Legends teammates. If they don't feel like they can carry, then they feel like they're going to lose, and then they just start raging. I don't understand the logic, but that is something that I have found, at least in my experience. And finally, moving on to our last point for how to tilt enemy teams. This point is a little bit of a step up from the last one, so it might not be for you. But our last point is to look up online as you're loading into game the enemy team and see which one of those has the negative match history. A player who has a match history that is as red as a book is probably someone that is going to be on tilt. No one likes to lose elo, and if someone is losing quite a lot of elo, then they're gonna be quite frustrated. Also, if they're anything like me, and I'm not even someone who's that susceptible to going on tilt really hard, but if I've lost a few games and I feel quite upset about that, or I feel like I didn't deserve to necessarily lose them, I'm just gonna be the kind of player who hits that play again button without really recognizing that I might be on a little bit of tilt and not playing my best. If you can identify those players that are already on tilt, then it's really easy for you to just put a lot of focus on them, to kind of camp them if you want to roam to them if you're not the jungler. Because if you can put that person behind, that is the kind of player that's just going to give up as soon as the game starts turning bad. I mean, on top of that, the game doesn't even need to be going legitimately poorly for his whole team. It can just be going poorly for him as an individual, and because he's already on pretty big tilt, then he's probably going to give up all the same. On top of that, you can also look for players who have a high average death over their past few games. Higher deaths are also another indication of someone that's going on tilt, letting their emotions control their thought process, and therefore obviously leading to some questionable decisions, which leads to more deaths. And on top of that, if you see an enemy player who's talking a lot in all chat, that's another good target for someone who is quite susceptible to going on tilt. But anyway, that's all I want to say for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to give it that cheeky thumbs up like I said. You can also find me on Facebook, on Twitter, and catch me streaming over at twitch.tv/Foxdrop. All those links are down below in the description, boys and girls. But most importantly, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.